What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellowship now in 2024. Happy New Year, happy holidays to everybody. Hopefully, you guys were able to secure some championships over the last weekend, and who knows, maybe you guys are still playing in Week 18. You shouldn't be, but if you are, have no fear. We got some more fantasy content for you guys coming on the way. But for now, I'm going to just do a quick little video here and kind of go over what I believed were the fantasy MVPs of 2023. I think there's several answers for each position. And honestly, there's waiver wire MVPs. There's all kinds of draft value MVPs. There's a lot of MVPs in consideration. Before we get to that, I just want to mention that I took some time today. I'm going to be doing the Week 18 start-sit charts. I'll file those up tomorrow. But otherwise, I added Dynasty rookie rankings and Dynasty rankings. If you guys want to check on them, please do. I'm going to continue to tinker and update and get more Dynasty content out for you guys this offseason. But let's get back to the meat of the video here today. And if I just type, I'm just looking at ESPN, the most fantasy points, on the season here. The three guys that finished number one, Christian McCaffrey, would have to be one of the biggest MVPs. He scored 391 PPR points this year, 24.5-point average. That was the most in the entire league. And I know, he got hurt. The odds of winning a championship with Christian McCaffrey, he only scored 13 points in that game. But man, he got you here. Christian McCaffrey had one of the greatest fantasy seasons of all time at the running back position, scored a ton of touchdowns. 21 touchdowns on the year, over 2,000 all-purpose yards. It was just a fantastic season for Christian McCaffrey. So he would be my nod. And he's also like one of the rare, first-round picks that actually went nuts. JJ teams, Jamar Chase teams, a couple other players in the first round didn't go as well as we hoped. But Christian McCaffrey, we tip your hat to you, fantasy football MVP at the running back position. At the quarterback position, we're going to go Josh Allen. Most people had Pat Mahomes or Jalen Hurts, the first quarterback off the board, but Josh Allen actually ended up with the number one score for QBs. And guess what? He rushed for 15 touchdowns this year. He threw 27 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. Yeah, he turned the ball over, but man, he's been on a heater to end the season, and he was probably a reason why a lot of people won fantasy championships. And he actually wasn't a great passer down the stretch. It was mostly his rushing ability here. 2 touchdowns, 1, 2. Dude had 8 rushing touchdowns in the final 5 weeks of the season for the Bills. So Josh Allen, he was the second or third quarterback off the board in most fantasy drafts. And he lived up to the hype. He was a good investment, and we need to see Buffalo's offense, I think, evolve in the future. But 15 touchdowns, that's probably going to be a career high mark for him. I don't think he's ever going to beat that. So career year on the ground for Josh Allen, rushing touchdowns. Not quite the MVP candidate, but hell of a season for Josh Allen. And let's just ride quarterback here for a little bit. Jalen Hurts, he paid off his ADP price. I think Lamar Jackson is probably another MVP candidate here. He had a fantastic season, and he's the lead MVP candidate in the real NFL. But man, his last 4 games, 36, 22, 18, 31, he was probably the reason why a lot of people won their Week 17 championship game here. Not a lot of rushing touchdowns for Lamar. He did not run for a touchdown all the way back to Week 7. So only 5 on the year. There was more meat on the bone here for Lamar Jackson. So I expect him to have another great 2024 season. But Lamar Jackson, and then we get to the values. I mean, the next guys on the list, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, and Brock Purdy. These guys can all be considered fantasy MVPs at the quarterback position. Dak Prescott, rough month to start the year, September. But after that 49ers game, he was probably the QB1 on the year. Fantastic year to Dak. Jordan Love and Brock Purdy. These were the 2 darlings that we probably found off the waiver wire. You drafted them really late. Fantastic seasons from those guys. Let's move on to the running backs, and I'll shout out a couple more. We already covered Christian McCaffrey, but man, Travis Etienne was a huge draft hit. I don't know if he's quite the fantasy MVP, but he did blow up in Week 17 for you. But if you had Etienne, you might not have gotten there with these couple duds, Weeks 15 and 16. So I like Etienne. But man, Raheem Mostert was a guy who carried teams all the way to the championship and wasn't able to play. But Breece Hall, this guy was a fantasy MVP. His last month or so, 27, 43, the 2.8 hurt in the first round of the playoffs, but 26 here, he absolutely won people championships. I was able to win a championship with Breece Hall on my team. And he kind of, he had the torn ACL coming into the year. He kind of defied that ACL logic, and he turned out to have a fantastic season. RB4 on the year, 74 receptions, and he's just been a PPR machine. So Brees Hall might be my RB1 next season. And then my final MVP at the running back position is going to be Kyren Williams. Came out of nowhere, man. We thought Cam Akers was going to be the running back one this year. There wasn't a lot of buzz on Kyren earlier in the summer, but he just scored touchdowns, and he was the clear running back that the Rams wanted to give the ball. He had 20 plus touches in all of the final 6 games here, and only what three games under 20 touches all season long here. So he is a true bell cow back. Fantastic runner, a lot of touchdowns, 15 touchdowns on the year here. I definitely won one of the championships. I've won 3 championships out of 4 this year. Kyren Williams was on a team and just super consistent down the stretch. He scored a touchdown in 5 out of 6 games. 3 in the championship weekend is one of his best games of his career here. So congrats, Kyren Williams, on a fantasy MVP season. And I'm going to shout out a couple other players. Rachaad White played great. Fantastic draft value. I think Jahmyr Gibbs held up his end of the deal, even though he didn't start the season great. And then James Cook, a nice consolation, as well as Isaiah Pacheco. The wide receivers, CeeDee Lamb, man, was fantastic this year. He didn't lead the league in fantasy points per game at the wide receiver position. That would be Tyreek Hill, who's also an MVP. But if you had CeeDee Lamb this year, you enjoyed having him on your team. And I had a team where I had CeeDee Lamb and the Dak stack going on. But the dude scored a touchdown in every game going all the way back to week 10. Didn't score in week 9, but he had 2 touchdowns in week 8. So dude's just been averaging a touchdown for the last 2 months or so, which is just insane. Some massive ceiling games here from CeeDee Lamb. 40 points in the championship. He single-handedly won people championships, I think, in 240 burgers on the year, or 39.5, 32.6. Like, amazing season here from CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. And he ends his season with career highs, in this receptions, 13 and 227 yards. Just a gem season from CeeDee Lamb here, who was probably a second, third round pick for most people. And he ended up being the wide receiver 1. And then Tyreek Hill. Obviously, Tyreek Hill got hurt for a game or 2. Missed a little bit of time. He still led the league in wide receiver fantasy points per game. Didn't have as much thump down the stretch, though, 13, 18, and 10. He definitely helped get you to the playoffs, but in the playoffs, he wasn't quite the elite wide receiver 1. And I think a lot of that had to do with the ankle injury. And it was Waddle was the ankle. I can't remember what Tyreek's was, but he just wasn't himself down the stretch. But still, he was a fantasy MVP all year. And then a couple shout outs here to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think AJ Brown had a tremendous start to the year. He was wide receiver 1 for a little bit there, but he kind of cooled down the stretch. No touchdowns in 5 straight games for AJ Brown as the Eagles offense cooled down. But how about Puka Nacua? One of the greatest waiver wire pickups of all time. Finishes as wide receiver 5, and he finishes with 2 really nice games here. 18.7 in the fantasy championships and 33 points on that Thursday night game to get you to the championship. And he had 1, 2, 3, 4 dud of a games, but other than that, fantastic. This is as good as a waiver wire pickup as you could hope for. So hopefully you guys spent the money on him week 1 or week 2 or whatever it was, and were able to get Puka, because I know he helped me win at least one of my championships of the 3. And then a couple honorable mentions here. I thought Keenan Allen was going to be an MVP if he stayed healthy, but with Herbert and everyone else getting injured on the Chargers, didn't really happen. But Mike Evans, DJ Moore, shout out to those guys. Fantastic seasons. And we'll give a little shout out to Deebo Samuel, who was playing like a top 5 receiver to end the year. And then we're going to finish with tight end. Sam Laporta is the tight end MVP. I mean, he probably went undrafted in most of your 10 and 12-man leagues. This is as good of a waiver wire tight end pickup as you could hope for. Sure, he had his fair share of duds, 4.8, 4.7. But, man, this is one of the greatest tight end rookie seasons of all time. He's going to be like the dynasty tight end 1 going forward. And he ended with, some bangers here, 28, a 29, 15 points in the fantasy championship here against Dallas. Unbelievable rookie season here. 81 catches, 860 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Not going to be a 1,000-yard season, but man, oh man, highly productive, and he's going to be fun to watch throughout his career. Travis Kelce didn't live up to the hype of a first-round pick. Getting up there in age, had a few injuries to deal with all season. Still finishes, up there as a top 2 tight end, but just not what we paid for. TJ Hawkinson might have been the fantasy MVP if he didn't get hurt. He was the tight end 1 pretty much all year. But unfortunately, his season's cut short. Evan Ingram played pretty well, one of the better draft day values. But I think one of the tight ends that got people to a lot of championships and hopefully won you guys some ships was David Njoku, who, man, all the way back, starting since week 7, double digits in every game except 1. And then he saved the best for last. I mean, 4 touchdowns in the final 4 games, 27, 26, 16, 17. Just an unreal season here for David Njoku, who finally puts it together, has the best career season for himself, and he definitely was a top 5 starting tight end down the stretch here. So Njoku will be my tight end 2 MVP. And then the last but not least, it's going to be Trey McBride, who I was super excited about him all summer. He was on all my best ball teams, and he helped me cash some prizes. But Zach Ertz was in the way for the first month and a half, but when it became Trey McBride's season, he put up bangers. He puts up 25, 21, 22, 20. He's got an elite tight end ceiling, and he's going to be a top 5 tight end going forward. I'm assuming Kyler Murray's going to stick around in Arizona, but they need to get a receiver. They might get Marvin Harrison Jones Jr. But either way, this was a fantastic season for the second-year tight end. He kind of, didn't finish strong, no touchdowns in the last month, but 10, 9, 20, 22, 13, 9, 21. If you picked up Trey McBride, you're just leaving him in there in your lineup all the time here. So fantastic year out of the second-year tight end. We had some other potential breakout. Jake Ferguson broke out. Cole Kmet had a nice season. Jake Ferguson, Dallas Goedert was playing okay before he got injured. And then Dalton Kincaid was really hot for a little bit there, but those would be my tight end MVPs. And that's going to do it. Just wanted to log in and say hello. No live streams this week. We're going to be just kind of resting. We've just done 17 straight weeks of covering the NFL season for you guys. So I'm going to take some downtime in January. I'll continue to upload short videos like this and start busting out some dynasty content. But like I said at the beginning, I got rookie dynasty rankings up. If you guys want to check out, some of the big names in the rookie class, go ahead and do that. And then I've uploaded some dynasty rankings as well. So that's it for me. Enjoy. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you are new, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.